The air conditioner rattled in my cramped apartment, its wheezing breath barely cooling the sticky summer heat that pressed against my skin. Outside, Chicago's South Side hummed with the usual Friday night chaos. Distant sirens, thumping bass from passing cars, occasional shouts echoing between buildings. I sat cross-legged on my second-hand couch, a glass of cheap wine trembling between my fingers, staring at my phone as if it might suddenly grow teeth and bite me. My thumb hovered over the message I'd typed but hadn't yet sent. Leave me alone. 3 simple words, a desperate plea disguised as a command. I took another sip of wine, liquid courage burning down my throat. What had started as a job, just another night shift at Velvet, that high-end restaurant downtown where the rich came to flaunt their wealth, had spiraled into something I couldn't control. Something dangerous. I hadn't recognized him when he first walked in 3 weeks ago. Why would I? The hostess had seated him in my section, and I'd approached his table like I would any other customers. But the way the restaurant had quieted, the way other waiters had suddenly found reasons to avoid that corner, I should have noticed. I should have paid attention. "Good evening, sir. Can I get you started with something to drink?" I'd asked, notepad ready, professional smile in place. He'd looked up, and something electric had shot through me. Dark eyes, almost black, had studied my face with the intensity of someone memorizing every detail. He wasn't classically handsome. His face was too sharp, too severe for that. But something about him commanded attention. Power radiated from him like heat from asphalt in August. "McAllen, 25. Neat," he'd said, voice low and smooth as velvet. Then, with a slight tilt of his head, "And your name is?" "Emma." I'd answered automatically, though we were supposed to keep personal details to ourselves. The restaurant policy was clear about that. "Emma," he'd repeated, as if testing how my name felt on his tongue. "I'll be in your capable hands tonight." It wasn't what he'd said, but how he'd said it. Like he was claiming something, like he already knew me. I hadn't thought much of it that night. Rich men often acted entitled. But then he'd returned the next night and the next, always requesting my section. Always leaving obscenely large tips that made my manager's eyebrows shoot up and my coworkers whisper behind their hands. It was only when Tessa, the bartender who'd worked at Velvet for years, had grabbed my arm in the break room and hissed, "Do you know who that is?" that I'd realized something was wrong. "That's Alexei Vasilyev," she'd whispered, eyes wide. "He owns half the city's waterfront. The other half is too afraid to say no when he wants to buy it." She'd glanced around nervously before adding, "They say he's connected. Like, seriously connected. Russian mob connected." I'd laughed it off. Surely she was exaggerating. But then last night, everything had changed. I'd been finishing my shift, counting my tips in the back alley behind the restaurant, when a sleek black Bentley had pulled up. The window had rolled down to reveal those same dark eyes. "Emma," he'd said, my name still sounding like a possession on his lips. "Allow me to drive you home. That's not necessary," I'd replied, clutching my purse tighter. "I take the L. A woman shouldn't be alone on the train at this hour." It wasn't a suggestion. His driver had already stepped out, opening the rear door. I'd noticed then the bulge beneath the driver's jacket. A gun. "Really, I'm fine," I'd insisted, backing away slowly. Something had flickered across Alexei's face. Irritation, perhaps, or surprise that I'd refused. "I'd like to discuss a business proposition with you." "I'm just a waitress," I'd said. He'd smiled then, a predator's smile that never reached his eyes. We both know that's not true. My blood had turned to ice. Did he know about Lily? About what I was hiding? "Get in the car, Emma." Again, not a request. I don't know what madness had possessed me in that moment. Fear, defiance, or simple self-preservation. But I'd turned and run, sprinted through back alleys and side streets until my lungs burned, taking a convoluted route home that had me doubling back and changing directions until I was sure I wasn't followed. But this morning, flowers had arrived at my apartment. Dozens of blood-red roses with a simple card. "We have unfinished business." A no address on the delivery. No way he should have known where I lived. I'd spent the day with my stomach in knots, calling in sick to work, checking the locks on my windows and doors. And then, an hour ago, the first text had come through on my phone from an unknown number. "You can't hide from me, Emma." Then another. "We need to talk about what you stole." I hadn't stolen anything, at least not personally, but I knew exactly what he was referring to. My ex, Danny, Lily's father, had bragged once about taking something valuable from some Russian big shot. I'd thought it was just another of his lies, his endless schemes that had finally landed him in prison 6 months ago. But now I realized the Russian big shot must have been Alexei Vasilyev, and whatever Danny had taken was serious enough for this man to hunt me down. With a deep breath, I finally pressed send on my message. "Leave me alone." The response came almost instantly. Too late. My phone started ringing immediately. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, and again. I watched in horror as the missed call notifications piled up. 5, 8, 12, 15. After the 15th call, a new text appeared. "Open your door, Emma." My heart stopped. A gentle knock echoed through my apartment, so soft it was almost polite. I froze, not daring to breathe. Another knock, slightly firmer. "I know you're in there." His voice, muffled by the door but unmistakable, sent chills racing down my spine. "We can discuss this civilly, or I can have Mikhail break down the door." "Your choice." I thought of Lily, my sweet 4-year-old daughter, sleeping at my neighbor Mrs. Patel's apartment for the night. Thank God she wasn't here. Whatever was happening, whatever trouble Danny had gotten me into, at least she was safe. On trembling legs, I approached the door. I didn't open it, just pressed my palm against its surface. "What do you want?" I called out, hating the tremor in my voice. "Open the door, Emma." His tone was calm, patient. The patience of a man used to getting exactly what he wanted, exactly when he wanted it. "Tell me what you want first." A pause. Then, information. About Daniel Reeves. About what he took from me, and where he's hidden it. "I don't know anything about that," I said truthfully. "Danny and I split up before he went to prison. We don't talk." "And yet you're raising his daughter." Ice flooded my veins. He knew about Lily. "Open the door," he repeated. I won't ask again. My survival instinct screamed at me to stay barricaded inside, to call the police, to do anything but open that door. But a deeper instinct, the one that had kept me alive on these streets, the one that had helped me escape an abusive relationship with Danny, the one that reminded me constantly of my responsibility to protect Lily, told me that defying this man would only make things worse. I unlocked the door with shaking hands and stepped back. The door swung open, and Alexei Vasilyev filled the frame. In the harsh fluorescent light of my apartment hallway, he looked even more imposing than he had in the dim restaurant. Tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than 6 months of my rent. Behind him stood a mountain of a man, bald and expressionless, eyes constantly scanning the hallway behind them. Alexei stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, his gaze sweeping over my humble apartment. The second-hand furniture, the faded curtains, the stack of bills on the coffee table, the framed photo of Lily and me at the lakefront. "You should answer when I call," he said conversationally, as if we were discussing the weather. He moved to my kitchenette, opening a cabinet and examining my mismatched mugs. "How did you get my number? My address?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. He turned, one eyebrow raised slightly. "Is that really the question you want to ask me right now?" I swallowed hard. "What did Danny take from you?" A flicker of approval crossed his face, there and gone in an instant. "Something irreplaceable. Something that belongs to my family." "I don't know anything about it," I repeated. "Danny never told me about his jobs." Alexei moved to the photo of Lily and me, picking it up with long, elegant fingers. My chest tightened. I wanted to snatch it away from him, to keep his darkness from touching even the image of my daughter. "Beautiful child," he murmured. "She has your eyes." He set the photo down carefully, then turned to face me fully. "Daniel contacted you last week, from prison." It wasn't a question. He knew, somehow, about the visitor request form that had arrived in the mail, about the collect call I'd rejected. "I didn't speak to him," I said. "But he's trying to reach you," Alexei pressed, taking a step closer to me. which means he wants something, and given his current accommodations, I suspect it's about what he took from me. I backed up until my legs hit the couch. I haven't talked to Danny in months. The last thing I want is him back in our lives. Alexei studied my face, his dark eyes searching for deception. Whatever he saw there must have convinced him, because he nodded slightly. Perhaps we can help each other then, he said. I doubt that. The words slipped out before I could stop them. To my surprise, the corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been amusement. You're afraid of me, he observed. Shouldn't I be? Yes, he answered simply. But not for the reasons you think. He glanced at his watch, platinum, gleaming in the dim light of my apartment. Pack a bag. You're coming with me. What? No, I shook my head vehemently. I'm not going anywhere with you, your daughter, he said, and my blood ran cold. She's staying with your neighbor tonight. Mrs. Patel in 3C, if I'm not mistaken. Terror, unlike anything I'd ever known, clawed at my throat. Leave her out of this. I have no intention of involving a child, he said, his voice hardening. But others might not be so principled. Daniel stole from dangerous people, Emma. People who won't hesitate to use whatever leverage they can find, including a 4-year-old girl. Are you threatening my daughter? My fear transformed instantly into protective rage. I'm offering to protect her. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne, sandalwood and something deeper, darker, and you. But to do that, I need you somewhere secure, somewhere my enemies can't find you while we resolve this situation. Why would you protect us? You don't even know us. His expression changed then, something complex and unreadable passing across his features. Because Daniel Reeves took something from me that I intend to recover. And at the moment, you and your daughter are my best leads. He checked his watch again. You have 10 minutes to pack essentials for yourself and the child. Mikhail will accompany you to collect her from your neighbors. And if I refuse? Alexei's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I glimpsed something like regret in their depths. Then I leave. And you take your chances with the other interested parties. They're watching this building as we speak. As if to punctuate his words, a car with tinted windows slowly cruised past on the street below my window. I felt trapped, cornered, a mouse choosing between the teeth of a cat and the snap of a trap. 10 minutes, I whispered, already calculating what Lily would need, what documents I should grab. Alexei nodded once, then turned to Mikhail. Secure the perimeter. I'll stay with her. As Mikhail left, Alexei moved to the window, positioning himself slightly to the side of the frame as he peered out at the street below. In that moment, with his guard slightly lowered, I saw not just the dangerous man who had invaded my life, but something else. A vigilance born of constant threat. The posture of someone who lived with danger as a companion. What had I gotten myself into? Or rather, what had Danny gotten us into? I moved to my bedroom, aware of Alexei's eyes following me, and began to pack, knowing that whatever happened next would change our lives forever. The back of Alexei's car was a different world. Buttery leather seats, privacy glass, the hushed purr of an engine too expensive to make noise. Lily slept against my side, her small body curled trustingly into mine, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. I'd managed to explain to Mrs. Patel that a family emergency required us to leave immediately. The kind old woman had helped me gather Lily's things, concern etched on her face as she'd glanced at Mikhail's imposing figure waiting by the door. You call me if you need anything, yes? She'd whispered, squeezing my hand. I'd nodded, not trusting my voice, wondering if I'd ever see her again. Now, as we glided through Chicago's night streets, I stroked Lily's dark curls and tried to calm the panic threatening to overwhelm me. Across from us, Alexei worked silently on a laptop, the blue glow illuminating the sharp planes of his face. He hadn't spoken since we'd left my apartment, giving me space to collect my daughter and whisper reassurances I wasn't sure I believed myself. Where are you taking us? I finally asked, my voice barely audible over the soft classical music playing through hidden speakers. Alexei looked up, his gaze moving from me to Lily and back again. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. A hint of that almost smile touched his lips again. One of my properties outside the city. Remote, secure, and unknown to most of my associates. How long do you intend to keep us there? Until I recover what was taken. His eyes narrowed slightly. Or until I'm convinced you truly know nothing about it. I shifted Lily gently, careful not to wake her. And then what? You'll just let us go back to our lives? That depends on what happens between now and then. He closed his laptop, setting it aside. Tell me about Daniel Reeves. The request startled me. Why? You seem to know everything already. I know facts, dates, criminal records, financial transactions. He leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. I don't know why a woman like you was ever with a man like him. A woman like me? I echoed, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. A waitress from the South Side? A woman with integrity, he corrected smoothly. I've had you investigated, Emma. Single mother working 2 jobs. Night classes at community college. No criminal record, not even a parking ticket. You don't drink to excess, don't use drugs, volunteer at your daughter's preschool when your schedule allows. His head tilted slightly. So, why Daniel Reeves? A known thief with a history of violence, who abandoned you before your child was born. The question hit too close to home, to the parts of myself I'd spent years trying to understand. I was 19 when I met Danny. Working as a cashier, taking classes when I could afford them. I looked down at Lily's sleeping face. He was charming, made me feel special. By the time I saw what he really was, I was already pregnant. And you chose to keep the child, raise her alone. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. She's not responsible for who her father is. Something passed across Alexei's features, a shadow of emotion I couldn't identify. No, he agreed quietly. Children rarely are. The car turned onto a private road, gravel crunching beneath the tires. Through the window, I could make out tall iron gates opening automatically as we approached. A long driveway bordered by precisely manicured trees. The house, if you could call it that, loomed in the distance. A modernist structure of glass and stone perched on the edge of what appeared to be a cliff overlooking Lake Michigan. We've arrived, Alexei announced unnecessarily as the car came to a stop beneath a covered entrance. Mikhail will show you to your rooms. Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning. I need to know my daughter will be safe, I insisted. Alexei's gaze was steady. No harm will come to your child in my house, Emma. You have my word. Strange how, despite everything, I believed him on that point. Mikhail opened the car door and stepped aside. I gathered Lily in my arms, her warm weight both comfort and burden, as I followed the bodyguard into the house. The interior was just as impressive as the exterior. Soaring ceilings, minimalist furnishings in neutral tones, walls of glass showcasing the moonlight dancing across the lake's surface. It should have felt cold, this museum-like perfection. But subtle touches, a cashmere throw draped across a sofa, the scent of cedar and citrus in the air, gave it an unexpected warmth. We ascended a floating staircase to the second floor, where Mikhail led us to a suite of rooms. For you and the little one, he said, his Russian accent thick, but his voice surprisingly gentle. Bathroom through there. Kitchen downstairs is fully stocked if you're hungry. I nodded my thanks, too exhausted for words. He hesitated at the door. There is security everywhere, he added, his meaning clear. Don't try to escape. Boss says to tell you. Press this button if you need anything. He indicated an intercom panel by the bed. Sleep well. After he left, I gently laid Lily on the king-sized bed, tucking the plush comforter around her small frame. She stirred slightly but didn't wake, exhaustion overriding the strangeness of her surroundings. I moved through the rooms, checking windows, sealed shut, doors, just the one to the hallway, and finally sinking onto the edge of the bed in defeat. I was trapped in a mobster's lake house with my 4-year-old daughter, all because my ex had stolen something irreplaceable from one of the most dangerous men in Chicago. My phone had no signal. There was no landline I could find, and even if I managed to escape the house, we were miles from anywhere, surrounded by security. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Crying wouldn't help us now. I needed to think, to plan, to figure out what Danny had taken and where he might have hidden it. That was our only way out of this nightmare. I must have fallen asleep despite my resolve to stay awake, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was streaming through the windows, and Lily was patting my cheek with her small hand. "Mommy, where are we? This isn't Mrs. Patel's house." I forced a smile, brushing her curls from her face. "We're staying somewhere special for a little while, baby. Like a vacation." Her eyes widened. A vacation? Like in the books? We'd never been able to afford a real vacation, but Lily loved the picture books about children visiting beaches and theme parks. "Something like that," I said, my heart breaking at her excitement. "Why don't we get you dressed and find some breakfast?" She nodded eagerly, already distracted by the novelty of our surroundings. I helped her dress in the clothes I'd hastily packed, then took a quick shower myself, all the while listening for sounds of Lily through the bathroom door. When I emerged, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, the most practical clothes I'd packed, I found Lily standing at the window, mesmerized by the view of the lake stretching endlessly toward the horizon. "It's so big, Mommy. Is it the ocean?" "No, sweetie. That's Lake Michigan. Remember we went to the beach there last summer?" "But it looks different," she insisted. "That's because we're seeing it from up high and from a different place along the shore." I took her hand. "Come on, let's find that breakfast." We ventured out into the hallway, which was empty but clearly monitored. Small cameras nestled discreetly in the corners of the ceiling. I followed the scent of coffee downstairs, Lily chattering excitedly beside me about the huge, fancy house. The kitchen was a chef's dream, gleaming stainless steel appliances, marble countertops, a massive island in the center, and there, leaning against that island with a mug in his hand, was Alexei. He'd abandoned yesterday's suit for dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that looked casually expensive, his dark hair slightly damp as if from a recent shower. The change in attire didn't make him any less intimidating. "Good morning," he said, his eyes moving from me to Lily with interest. Lily, suddenly shy, pressed against my legs. I rested a protective hand on her shoulder. "Are you hungry?" he asked, directing the question to Lily. She nodded silently. "Marina has prepared breakfast," he continued, gesturing toward a woman I hadn't noticed, working quietly at the stove. "Pancakes, I believe." With blueberries, Lily's eyes lit up. Pancakes were her favorite, but she remained pressed against me, uncertain. "Why don't you sit at the table, sweetheart?" I suggested, guiding her to the breakfast nook overlooking the lake. "I'll bring your pancakes in a minute." Once she was settled, I turned back to Alexei, keeping my voice low. "I need to know what's going on. What exactly did Danny take from you? And why do you think I know anything about it?" Alexei set his coffee mug down. "Not here," he said quietly, nodding toward Lily. "After breakfast, we'll talk." He reached past me to a fruit bowl on the counter, selecting an apple with deliberate care. "Your daughter is lovely," he observed, turning the apple in his fingers. "She has your eyes, but the rest is her father, no?" I stiffened. "She's nothing like Danny. Nature versus nurture," he mused. "An eternal question." He took a bite of the apple, studying me over it. "You've done well, raising her alone. It can't have been easy." The unexpected compliment caught me off guard. "She's worth it," I said simply. Something flickered in his eyes, respect perhaps, or something deeper. "Yes," he agreed. "Children always are." Marina approached with a plate of pancakes, ending our strange moment. "For the little one," she said with a thick Russian accent and a warm smile that transformed her stern features. "And more for you both when you're ready." I thanked her and brought the plate to Lily, cutting the pancakes into bite-sized pieces before returning to Alexei, who had moved to the large windows overlooking the lake. "Why am I really here?" I asked, keeping my voice low enough that Lily couldn't hear. "If you've had me investigated as thoroughly as you claim, you must know I have no idea what Danny took or where he hid it." Alexei turned to face me, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps? But Daniel believes you know, or that you have access to it, which means others believe the same." "Others? Who?" "Business competitors," he said vaguely. "People who would be less considerate of your daughter's welfare than I am." A chill ran through me. "So, we're what, bait?" Leverage against Danny? Protection, he corrected. And yes, leverage, but not in the way you think. He stepped closer, his voice dropping further. The item Daniel took is a family heirloom. Valuable financially, but irreplaceable sentimentally. My mother's last gift to me before she died. The personal admission surprised me. I hadn't expected this cold, calculating man to speak of sentiment or family. What was it? I pressed. He hesitated, then said, a Fabergé egg, one of the lost imperial eggs, believed destroyed during the Revolution. It's been in my family for generations, passed down in secret. My mind reeled. I'd learned about Fabergé eggs in an art history class. Exquisite jeweled creations made for Russian czars, many lost to history. They were worth millions. Danny stole a Fabergé egg from you? That's impossible. He was a small-time thief, not some international art thief. Daniel was merely the instrument, not the architect, Alexei said dismissively. He was hired by someone who knew of the egg's existence and my possession of it. Someone who has since gone suspiciously silent. And you think this person might come after me and Lily to find it? I know they will. His certainty sent ice through my veins. They've already tried. The car watching your apartment last night wasn't my men. I thought of how close danger had come to my daughter, and felt sick. I don't know anything about any egg, I insisted. Danny never mentioned it. Alexei studied me, those dark eyes seeming to peel back my defenses layer by layer. Perhaps not directly, he conceded. But there may be clues in things he said, places he frequented, people he associated with. I cut all ties with Danny's world when Lily was born. And yet he's reaching out to you now. From prison, Alexei pointed out. Why? What changed? I had no answer. The prison call. The visitor request. They had confused me too. After years of silence, why would Danny suddenly want to see me? Unless... The storage unit. I murmured. The realization hitting me suddenly. Alexei went very still. What storage unit? I hesitated, unsure if I should reveal even this small piece of information, but if it could help get us out of this situation faster. Danny rented a storage unit when we were together. He kept things there he didn't want in the apartment, tools for his jobs, mainly. After he went to prison, I stopped paying for it. The company sent a notice a few weeks ago saying they were going to auction the contents for non-payment. Interest sharpened Alexei's gaze. Where is this unit? South Shore. One of those anonymous places where they don't ask questions. He nodded thoughtfully. We'll investigate it immediately. He pulled out his phone, presumably to message Mikhail or another of his men. What happens if you find your egg there? I asked. Alexei's eyes met mine. Then you and Lily go home, with compensation for your trouble. And if it's not there? His expression darkened slightly. Then we keep looking. A delighted squeal from Lily interrupted us. She'd discovered she could see boats on the lake from her seat. Tiny white triangles of sail cutting across the blue expanse. Look, Mommy, boats! I forced a smile. I see them, baby. When I turned back to Alexei, I was startled to find him watching Lily with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something almost wistful. She's never seen sailboats before. He asked quietly. Not up close. We don't exactly frequent yacht clubs. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. He seemed to make a decision. There's a telescope in the study. She might enjoy using it to watch the boats. The unexpected kindness caught me off guard again. Thank you, I said cautiously. That would be nice. He nodded once, then turned to leave. Enjoy your breakfast. I have calls to make regarding the storage unit. We'll speak more this afternoon. As he walked away, I watched his retreating figure with confusion. This man, this alleged mobster who had essentially kidnapped us, was impossible to categorize neatly as villain or savior. He was dangerous, certainly. I could feel that in every interaction. But there were layers to him I hadn't expected. I joined Lily at the table, helping myself to some pancakes as I tried to process everything. One thing was clear. Our lives had become entangled with Alexei Vasiliev's in ways I couldn't yet understand. And until he found his precious egg, we were staying in this gilded cage. Mommy, Lily whispered, her eyes wide with childish conspiracy. Is that man a prince? He lives in a castle. Despite everything, I had to suppress a laugh. No, sweetie, he's not a prince. Then what is he? I looked out at the lake, at the vast emptiness of it, and wondered the same thing myself. He's someone we need to stay with for a little while, I said finally. Just until some grown-up problems get sorted out. Lily accepted this with the easy resilience of childhood, already distracted again by the boats on the horizon. But as I sipped my coffee, better than any I'd ever tasted, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial, something that might be the key to our freedom, or our downfall. After breakfast, a woman named Irina appeared to help with the child. Tall and stern-faced with prematurely silver hair pulled into a tight bun, she introduced herself as the housekeeper. Despite her intimidating appearance, she displayed a gentle patience with Lily that put me somewhat at ease. "I have children's books in the library," she told Lily, who looked up with interest. "And puzzles. Would you like to see?" Lily glanced at me for permission. I nodded, but said, "I'll come too." "As you wish," Irina replied with a slight shrug. "But Mr. Vasiliev requests your presence in his study when you have settled the child." My stomach tightened. "Where is his study?" "End of the main hallway, double doors. He is expecting you." Her tone made it clear this wasn't optional. The library turned out to be a sunlit room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and comfortable window seats overlooking the grounds. A children's area had been set up in one corner with a small table, cushions, and shelves of colorful books. Lily gasped in delight, immediately drawn to a basket of wooden puzzles. "You may leave her with me," Irina said, her stern face softening as she watched Lily. "She will be safe." I hesitated. The thought of letting Lily out of my sight in this strange place filled me with anxiety, but I also needed to speak with Alexei to find out what was happening with the storage unit investigation. "I'll be back very soon, sweetie," I told Lily, kneeling to her level. "You be good for Miss Irina, okay?" "Okay, Mommy." She was already engrossed in a puzzle of sea creatures, barely looking up. I walked the long hallway with leaden feet, taking in the artwork adorning the walls. Mostly modern pieces, abstract and probably worth fortunes. At the end stood the double doors Irina had mentioned. I knocked softly. "Enter," came Alexei's voice from within. The study was exactly what I'd expect from someone like him, masculine and elegant, with leather furnishings and dark wood shelves. One wall was entirely glass, offering another stunning view of the lake. Alexei sat behind a massive desk, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Russian. He gestured for me to sit in one of the chairs opposite him. I perched on the edge, taking in the room while he finished his call. Books on art, history, and business filled the shelves. A chess set with carved stone pieces sat on a side table, a game apparently in progress. No personal photos, though. Nothing to humanize the space. Alexei ended his call and set the phone down, fixing those dark eyes on me. "Your daughter is settled. For now." I clasped my hands in my lap to stop their trembling. "Have you found anything in the storage unit?" "My men are there now, but there's a complication." He leaned back in his chair. "The unit was opened and emptied 2 days ago." My stomach dropped. "That's impossible. The auction wasn't scheduled until next week." "It wasn't the storage company." His expression hardened. "Security footage shows 2 men entering with what appears to be Daniel's key. They took everything. Danny's in prison. How would someone get his key? Perhaps he gave it to an associate. Or perhaps someone took it from him." Alexei's fingers drummed once on the desk. "I need to know everyone Daniel was working with before his arrest." I shook my head. "I told you. I cut ties with that part of his life. He didn't bring his business associates around after I got pregnant. Think, Emma." His voice remained calm, but urgency tinged the edges. "Did he ever mention names? Locations? Did he ever have you hold anything for him? Deliver packages, make calls?" "No," I insisted. Then, remembering something. "Wait. There was someone he mentioned a few times. Called him the Professor. I thought it was just a nickname." Alexei went still. "Describe what Daniel said about this person." "Not much. Just that the professor was smart, had connections in the art world." I frowned, trying to remember. Once, when Danny came home with more money than usual, he said it was because the professor had rich clients with specific tastes. Something dark passed across Alexei's face. Dmitry Orlov, he muttered, almost to himself. Who? A former academic who became a broker for stolen art and artifacts, Alexei explained, his accent thickening slightly with what seemed like anger. He specializes in finding buyers for specific pieces before they're even stolen. And you think he hired Danny to steal your egg? It fits his pattern. Alexei stood, moving to the window. Orlov disappeared 3 weeks ago. His apartment was found empty, accounts cleaned out. So he has your egg? Perhaps. Alexei turned back to me. Or perhaps Daniel double-crossed him. Your ex wasn't known for his loyalty. That, at least, was true. Danny had cheated on me multiple times before I'd finally thrown him out. If Danny double-crossed this professor person, why would he be reaching out to me now? I asked. Insurance, Alexei suggested. If he hid the egg somewhere only you could access, he could use it as a bargaining chip. The theory made a sick kind of sense. But I don't have it. I don't know where it is. The answer is somewhere in your connection to Daniel. Alexei moved closer, sitting on the edge of the desk near me. The proximity made my heart rate spike. I need access to all communication you've had with him since his arrest. Visitor requests, letters, recorded calls. There's nothing to access. I never visited him, never accepted his calls. I looked up into his face, so close now I could see flecks of amber in his dark eyes. My only priority is keeping Lily away from his influence. Something in his expression shifted, a softening around the edges. A worthy priority, he said quietly, then abruptly changing topics. You're studying accounting. The non sequitur threw me. How did you... Your textbooks, in your apartment. Of course. He'd had time to observe everything while I packed. Yes, I admitted. Night classes when I can afford them. It's taking forever, but eventually I'll get my degree. Why accounting? I shrugged. It's practical. Stable. The kind of job where you can work regular hours and be home for your child. He nodded thoughtfully. You want security for her, stability. Something I never had growing up, I said without thinking, then regretted the personal revelation. Tell me, he said simply. I don't know why I did. Maybe the stress of the situation had worn down my usual barriers. Or maybe there was something in his attentive silence that pulled the words from me. Foster care, I said, looking past him to the lake. From age 7 when my mother died until I aged out at 18. Some homes were okay, some were not. And your father? Never in the picture. Mom wouldn't even tell me his name. I shook my head slightly. That's why I promised myself Lily would always know she was wanted, would always have a stable home, no matter how much I had to work for it. Alexei was silent for a long moment, studying me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. Finally, he said, "Admirable," in a tone that suggested genuine respect. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He answered with a curt Russian phrase, listened for a moment, then responded with what sounded like instructions before hanging up. My men found something at the storage facility, he said, standing. Not the egg, but perhaps a lead. I need to go there personally. He hesitated, then added, Would you and Lily like to come along? There's a park nearby. She could play while I investigate. The offer stunned me. You'd let us leave the house? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. With proper supervision, of course. Mikhail and 2 others would accompany us. His expression turned serious again. I understand confinement is difficult, especially for a child. A few hours outside might be good for her, for both of you. I should have been suspicious of this sudden kindness, but the thought of getting Lily out into the sunshine, letting her run and play like a normal child instead of a prisoner, overrode my caution. Yes, I said, that would be... Thank you. He nodded once. We leave in 30 minutes. The park was a small neighborhood one, with swings, slides, and a sandbox. Lily ran for the swings immediately, her face bright with excitement. Push me, Mommy. Hi, I obliged, savoring her delighted squeals as she soared through the air. From the corner of my eye, I could see Alexei standing a short distance away with Mikhail, speaking quietly while keeping watch over the area. 2 other men I didn't recognize positioned themselves at opposite ends of the park, their attentive postures making it clear they were security, not casual park-goers. After about 20 minutes of swinging, Lily wanted to try the slide. As I helped her climb the ladder, I noticed Alexei approaching. "I need to check something at the storage facility," he said. "It's just across the street. Mikhail will stay with you." I nodded, watching as he crossed the street to the nondescript building with rows of orange garage-style doors. Mikhail moved closer to us, his large frame creating a protective shadow. "Mommy, watch me," Lily called, preparing to slide down. I turned my attention back to my daughter, clapping as she descended the slide with her arms raised triumphantly. But as she ran back toward the ladder for another turn, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Mikhail tensed instantly, his hand moving beneath his jacket. The two other security men converged, one positioning himself between us and the vehicle. The SUV's back door opened, and a man stepped out, slender, gray-haired, with wire-rimmed glasses and the air of a distinguished academic. His smile was pleasant as he approached, but something in his eyes made my skin crawl. "Ms. Reeves," he called, his voice carrying a slight accent I couldn't place. What a pleasant surprise. Mikhail moved in front of me, speaking into a concealed microphone in rapid Russian. I grabbed Lily, pulling her close to my side. "Who are you?" I demanded, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. "An associate of Daniel's," the man said, still smiling. "You may call me the professor." My blood ran cold. Dmitry Orlov, the man who had supposedly disappeared, the one who had likely hired Danny to steal the Fabergé egg. "I think you and I should have a conversation about Daniel's investment," he continued, taking another step forward. Mikhail barked something in Russian that needed no translation. "Stay back." The professor's smile didn't falter. "I see Vasilyev has gotten to you first. Unfortunate, but not insurmountable." His eyes shifted to Lily, who was clinging to my leg, suddenly shy in the presence of a stranger. "What a beautiful child. Daniel's, I presume. The resemblance is striking. Leave her out of this," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Oh, I have no interest in children," he said dismissively. "My interest is in what Daniel entrusted to you." "I don't have anything of yours," I insisted. The professor sighed. "Daniel said you would say that. He also said you'd change your mind when properly motivated." His hand moved slightly inside his jacket. Whatever he intended was interrupted by Alexei's voice, cold and commanding. "Orlov." The professor turned, his expression shifting from smug confidence to wary calculation as Alexei approached, flanked by two more men. The storage facility loomed behind them. "Vasilyev," the professor acknowledged with a slight nod. "This is unexpected." "Is it?" Alexei's tone was conversational, but his eyes were hard. "You disappear for 3 weeks after my property goes missing, then reappear precisely when I'm investigating a lead? I don't believe in coincidences." The professor spread his hands. "Business required my attention elsewhere. As for your property, I'm as eager to locate it as you are. My client was most displeased when it wasn't delivered as promised." "Your client?" Alexei repeated flatly. "The same client who's been trying to acquire my family's legacy for years? Who sent threats after I refused his offers?" A thin smile spread across the professor's face. "The piece rightfully belongs in his collection. Your grandfather acquired it under questionable circumstances." Alexei's expression hardened. "My grandfather saved it from destruction, preserved it when others would have melted it down for the gold." He took a step closer to the professor. "Leave now, Orlov. You won't get a second warning." For a tense moment, I thought the professor might refuse. His eyes darted from Alexei to Mikhail to the other security men, clearly calculating his odds. Finally, he inclined his head slightly. "This isn't over, Vasilyev. The piece will find its way to its rightful owner eventually." His gaze shifted to me. "Ms. Reeves, do consider my offer. I'm far more reasonable than your current host." With that, he retreated to the SUV, which pulled away smoothly from the curb. Alexei turned to me, his expression grave. "We need to leave. Now." I nodded, lifting Lily into my arms despite her protests that she wasn't finished playing. As we hurried to Alexei's waiting car, I asked, "What did you find in the storage unit?" "Nothing but this." He handed me a small key, not a storage unit key, but what looked like a safety deposit box key with a number engraved on it. I don't recognize this, I said truthfully. I believe it's for a box at First Merchants Bank downtown, Alexei replied, helping me settle Lily in the car before sliding in beside us. The number matches their sequence. Danny didn't have a safety deposit box, I insisted, at least not that I knew about. Perhaps not in his name, Alexei suggested, signaling for the driver to go. We'll investigate tomorrow. For now, we return to the house. Orlov's appearance makes the situation more volatile. As we drove away from the park, Lily fell asleep against me, exhausted from her brief adventure. I stroked her hair, my mind racing with new fears. The professor had found us easily. What was to stop him from finding us at Alexei's house? As if reading my thoughts, Alexei said quietly, "The house is secure. Orlov won't find it, and he wouldn't dare breach it if he did." "How can you be so sure?" Alexei's eyes met mine. "Because the consequences would be severe. Even Orlov isn't that reckless." The calm certainty with which he said this reminded me forcefully of exactly who he was. A man powerful and dangerous enough to make such threats credible. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," he said, "we wait until morning to check the safety deposit box, and you tell me anything else you can remember about Daniel's activities before his arrest." I leaned my head back against the seat, suddenly exhausted. "There's nothing else to tell." Alexei studied me for a long moment, then reached out, and in a gesture that startled me with its gentleness, brushed a strand of hair from my face. "Get some rest, Emma," he said softly. "Tomorrow will bring answers, one way or another." That night, I dreamed of golden eggs in iron cages, of Danny's mocking laughter, and the professor's cold eyes watching my daughter. I woke with a gasp, sweat-damp sheets twisted around me. Lily slept peacefully beside me, her small chest rising and falling with each breath, untroubled by the dangers surrounding us. The digital clock on the nightstand read 3:17 a.m. Knowing sleep would elude me now, I carefully slipped out of bed and padded to the window. The moon cast a silver path across the dark waters of Lake Michigan, a beautiful sight that did nothing to calm my racing thoughts. I nearly screamed when a soft knock sounded at the door. Heart pounding, I crossed the room and called quietly, "Who is it?" "Alexei," came the response, his voice low and unmistakable. Frowning, I opened the door to find him standing in the dimly lit hallway. He'd changed into black lounge pants and a gray t-shirt, the most casual I'd seen him, though he looked no less imposing. "Is something wrong?" I whispered, conscious of Lily sleeping behind me. "I saw the light under your door," he explained. "Couldn't sleep?" I shook my head. "Bad dreams." Something like understanding crossed his face. "Come," he said, gesturing down the hallway. "I find a glass of vodka helps on such nights." I hesitated, glancing back at Lily. "She's safe," Alexei assured me. "There's a security guard stationed at the end of the hall, and the monitoring system would alert us to any disturbance." Still uncertain, I grabbed the small baby monitor I'd packed from my bag and placed the receiver unit near Lily. Taking the transmitter, I followed Alexei downstairs to a room I hadn't seen before. A cozy den with a fireplace where embers still glowed, casting warm light across leather furnishings and bookshelves. Alexei went to a cabinet and produced a crystal decanter and 2 small glasses. He poured clear liquid into each, then handed one to me. "Not the cheap stuff you're used to," he said, the ghost of a smile playing at his lips. "I'm not much of a drinker," I admitted, taking the glass cautiously. "This isn't for getting drunk," he corrected, raising his glass slightly. "It's for quieting the mind." I took a small sip and nearly gasped as liquid fire slid down my throat, warming me from the inside out. Alexei chuckled at my reaction. "Small sips," he advised, demonstrating with his own glass. We sat in surprisingly comfortable silence for a few moments, the crackling embers the only sound in the room. I couldn't help but study him when he wasn't looking. The strong profile, the constant alertness in his posture even in this moment of apparent relaxation. "Ask your questions, Emma," he said suddenly, still gazing into the fire. "I can hear you thinking." I took another small sip of vodka for courage. "Who are you, really, beyond the rumors and the restaurant whispers?" He considered this for a long moment. "I'm a businessman with diverse interests. Some legitimate, some less so." "A mobster, you mean?" His lips quirked slightly. Such an American term. So black and white. Isn't it? You're either a criminal or you're not. The world has many shades of gray, Emma. He turned to face me fully. My father came to this country with nothing after the Soviet Union fell. Everything had been taken from our family. Wealth, position, history, everything except a few treasures my grandmother had hidden, including the egg. I remained silent, sensing there was more to the story. He built a new life here, piece by piece, sometimes cutting corners, sometimes breaking rules that had already been broken against him. His voice held no apology. By the time he died, he had rebuilt a fraction of what our family once had. And you continued his work, I supplied. I expanded it, legitimized much of it. He took a sip of his vodka. The waterfront properties, the restaurants, the investment firm. All legal enterprises. And the other parts? His dark eyes held mine. Protection. Importation of goods that face excessive taxation. Resolution of disputes outside traditional channels. You hurt people, I said. Not a question, but a statement. When necessary. He didn't flinch from the accusation. But not indiscriminately. Not without reason. Is that supposed to make it better? No, he said simply. It is what it is. I shook my head, looking down at my glass. I don't understand this world. Danny tried to pull me into it, but I never wanted any part of it. Yet here you are. Not by choice, I reminded him. Few of our circumstances are by choice. Alexei set his empty glass down. We play the hand we're dealt. The baby monitor crackled softly as Lily turned over in her sleep, muttering something unintelligible. I instinctively glanced toward it. You're a good mother, Alexei observed quietly. You've built a life for her against considerable odds. The unexpected compliment warmed me more than the vodka had. She deserves better than what I can give her. Perhaps, he acknowledged. But she has what many children lack. A parent who would do anything for her. Something in his tone made me wonder. Do you have children? A shadow passed across his features. No. There was a story there, I sensed, but he clearly didn't wish to elaborate. Instead, he asked, what will you do when this is over, when you return to your life? Keep working, keep studying, keep trying to give Lily a better future. I finished my vodka, welcoming the warmth spreading through my limbs. Same as always. He nodded thoughtfully. A life of sacrifice, a life of love, I corrected. There's a difference. Our eyes met, and something passed between us, a moment of understanding that transcended our vastly different worlds. For a heartbeat, he wasn't the dangerous mobster who'd upended my life, but simply a man sitting across from me in the firelight, sharing confidences in the small hours. The moment broke when the baby monitor emitted a small whimper. Lily's voice called softly, Mommy? I stood immediately. I should go back. Alexei rose as well. Of course. He walked me to the stairs where we paused. Thank you, I said, not entirely sure what I was thanking him for. The drink, the conversation, the momentary peace. Sleep well, Emma, he replied, his voice low and rich in the darkness. I hurried back to Lily, who had awakened confused in the strange bed. I'm here, baby, I soothed, slipping under the covers beside her. Everything's okay. I had a bad dream, she murmured sleepily. Me too, I whispered, kissing her forehead. But they can't hurt us. As she drifted back to sleep in my arms, I wondered if I was lying to both of us. Morning came too quickly. After breakfast, Alexei informed me that we would be visiting First Merchants Bank to investigate the safety deposit box. I've arranged for Irina to watch Lily here, he said. It's safer if she remains at the house. Though reluctant to leave her, I knew he was right. The confrontation with the professor had proven how dangerous the situation was. I spent extra time explaining to Lily that I needed to go out for a little while, but would be back soon, and she seemed content enough with Irina's promise of baking cookies and watching her favorite cartoon. The bank was in downtown Chicago, a gleaming tower of glass and steel. Alexei, back in his impeccable business suit, led me through the marble lobby with the confidence of someone who belonged in such surroundings. Mikhail followed a few paces behind, his watchful eyes scanning constantly. At the safety deposit box area, an attendant greeted Alexei by name. Mr. Vasilyev, good morning. How may I assist you today? I need to access a box, Alexei replied smoothly, showing the key we'd found in Danny's storage unit. The attendant examined the key, then checked her computer. I see. This box is registered to an Emma Reeves. I blinked in surprise. Me? That's impossible. I don't have an account here. The box was opened 6 months ago, the attendant continued, looking at her screen. Is there a problem? Alexei placed a hand lightly on my lower back, a silent warning to play along. No problem, I said quickly. I just use this box so rarely I'd forgotten about it. The attendant smiled politely. Of course. I'll need to see your ID and then I'll take you to your box. My hand shook slightly as I produced my driver's license. The attendant verified it, then led us to a private room with the safety deposit box. I'll leave you to your privacy, she said, closing the door behind her. Alexei immediately took the box from me, setting it on the table and opening it with the key. Inside was a small velvet pouch and an envelope with my name written on it in Danny's messy handwriting. Open the letter, Alexei instructed, his voice tense. With trembling fingers, I broke the seal and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. If you're reading this, things have gone sideways. The professor isn't who he claims to be. Don't trust him. The package was never meant for him. It was insurance for me and Lily. There's a key to a cabin in Wisconsin inside the egg. Papers there will explain everything. I know I've been the world's worst father and boyfriend, but I'm trying to make it right. Take the egg to Vasilyev personally if you can. He'll pay enough to set you and Lily up for life. Just be careful. Some people will kill for this thing. Danny. I looked up at Alexei, who had been reading over my shoulder. He was double-crossing the professor, I said, understanding dawning. He was planning to sell the egg back to you. After using it to blackmail Orlov, Alexei confirmed, his expression dark. A dangerous game. He reached for the velvet pouch, carefully untying it and emptying the contents onto the table. The Fabergé egg was smaller than I'd expected, perhaps the size of an actual egg, but breathtaking in its artistry. Gold and platinum formed an intricate lattice, studded with tiny diamonds and sapphires. Through the open work, I could glimpse an inner shell of deep blue enamel. It's beautiful, I whispered. It's one of the lost imperial eggs, Alexei said softly, genuine emotion in his voice for the first time. Made for Tsar Nicholas II to give to his mother in 1916. The revolution came before it could be delivered. My great-grandmother was a lady-in-waiting who smuggled it out during the chaos. He carefully turned the egg in his hands, then pressed something I couldn't see. With a soft click, the egg opened, revealing a miniature replica of the Russian winter palace inside, surrounded by tiny diamond snowflakes. Nestled beside it was a small gold key. The cabin key, I said. Alexei nodded, extracting it carefully. We should investigate this cabin. Daniel may have left evidence that could help us deal with Orlov permanently. So it's over? I asked hopefully. You have your egg back. His eyes met mine, unexpectedly gentle, almost. We need to ensure Orlov understands you know nothing, that there's nothing to be gained by pursuing you and Lily. A chill ran through me at the reminder that our safety wasn't yet secured. What will you do to him? Nothing that concerns you, he replied, his tone making it clear the subject was closed. He carefully returned the egg to its velvet pouch. Let's return to the house. We'll make arrangements to visit the cabin tomorrow. As we left the bank, I noticed Alexei was more relaxed than I'd seen him since this ordeal began. The recovery of his family treasure had lifted a weight from him, making him seem almost human. In the car, he sat closer to me than before, our shoulders occasionally brushing with the vehicle's movement. You'll be compensated generously for your assistance, he said, as we drove through the city streets. I didn't do anything, I pointed out. Danny set all this up without my knowledge. Nevertheless, he insisted, you've been inconvenienced, put at risk. I thought about what such a windfall could mean for Lily and me, an apartment in a better neighborhood, maybe even a small house. No more double shifts, the ability to finish my degree faster. Thank you, I said sincerely. Alexei studied me for a moment. You're not what I expected, Emma Reeves. What did you expect? Someone more like Daniel, Someone who would try to negotiate, to get as much as possible out of the situation. I shrugged. I just want to get back to our normal life. With Lily safe. He nodded slowly. A simple desire, yet so rare. As we pulled up to a stoplight, I caught him looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. For a wild moment, I thought he might say something more, might reach for my hand. But then the light changed, and the moment passed, leaving me with a strange flutter in my chest. I didn't want to examine too closely. The Wisconsin cabin was nothing like I'd imagined. Instead of a rustic hideaway, it was a modern structure of glass and cedar perched on the shore of a small private lake, accessible only by a winding dirt road that seemed to go on forever. Danny couldn't afford a place like this, I said, as Alexei's Range Rover pulled up to the house. Mikhail and another security man had followed in a separate vehicle. No, Alexei agreed, studying the property with narrowed eyes. This belongs to someone with significant resources. The key from the Fabergé egg opened the front door with a smooth click. The interior was sparsely but expensively furnished. Leather sofas, a stone fireplace, high-end kitchen appliances. Large windows offered panoramic views of the lake and surrounding pine forest. Spread out, Alexei instructed his men in English. Secure the perimeter first, then search the house. Look for a safe, hidden compartments. Anything unusual. As the men moved efficiently through the property, Alexei guided me to the main living area. What exactly did Daniel say in his letter? About papers being here? Just that they would explain everything, I replied, glancing around the immaculate space. Nothing about this place felt like Danny. It was too clean, too organized, too tasteful. Alexei moved to a built-in bookcase, running his fingers along the spines of leather-bound volumes. Daniel wasn't intelligent enough to orchestrate all this, he mused. Someone helped him set this up. The professor? Perhaps. Or perhaps Daniel was playing all sides. He pulled out a book, examined it, then replaced it. He always was adaptable when it served his interests. I couldn't argue with that assessment. Danny had always been a chameleon, becoming whoever he needed to be to get what he wanted. A shout from upstairs interrupted our search. Boss, found something. We hurried up the pine staircase to the master bedroom, where Mikhail stood beside an open panel in the wall. A hidden safe now exposed. It was behind the mirror, he explained, gesturing to the ornate mirror that had been swung away from the wall. Standard combination lock, easy to crack. Inside the safe lay a manila envelope, a USB drive, and a handgun. Alexei removed the items carefully, handing the envelope to me. Open it, he instructed. The envelope contained several documents. Offshore bank account statements in my name with a balance of $5 million, transfer records, and photographs. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. I don't understand, I whispered. I never opened these accounts. Daniel did, using your identity, Alexei said, examining one of the statements over my shoulder. The transfers coincide with the theft of the egg and several other high-value items over the past year. I stared at him in horror. He was setting me up to take the fall if things went wrong. While ensuring Lily would be provided for, Alexei noted, pointing to a trust document naming Lily as beneficiary if anything happened to me. His own twisted version of paternal care. The revelation made me sick. Danny had placed a target on my back while convincing himself he was helping us. Alexei turned his attention to the photographs. They showed the professor, Dmitry Orlov, meeting with various well-dressed men in different locations. In one, he was clearly handing over a small object that looked like an antique snuff box to an older man with silver hair and a distinctive ring. Collectors, Alexei murmured. Orlov's clients. He studied one photo more closely, his expression darkening. Including some who should know better than to do business with him. As Alexei inserted the USB drive into a laptop one of his men produced, I wandered to the window, trying to process what we'd found. Danny had stolen the Fabergé egg and other valuables, stashed the proceeds in accounts under my name, and apparently documented the professor's criminal dealings as leverage. It was a scheme breathtaking in its recklessness and betrayal. Emma, Alexei called, his voice sharp. Come look at this. The laptop screen showed a video file, footage of the professor in what appeared to be a private office, speaking with a distinguished-looking man, whose face seemed vaguely familiar. That's Senator Wells, Alexei explained, noticing my confusion. Chairman of the committee overseeing international art repatriation. In the video, money was clearly changing hands, along with documents bearing official seals. Blackmail material, I whispered, understanding dawning. Danny was blackmailing the professor. And potentially his clients, Alexei agreed. A dangerous game for a small-time thief. He scrolled through more files, documents, more photos, account numbers. A comprehensive record of the professor's operation and clients, including dates, locations, and amounts paid. Daniel was more clever than I gave him credit for, Alexei admitted, a grudging respect in his voice. This is enough to destroy Orlov completely. And that's what Danny wanted? I asked, struggling to reconcile this calculated scheme with the impulsive, selfish man I'd known. Perhaps, Alexei said, or perhaps it was merely insurance, a way to keep himself alive if Orlov discovered the double cross. Whatever Danny's motives, the evidence was damning. The professor had been using his academic connections to identify valuable artifacts, hiring thieves like Danny to steal them, and selling them to wealthy collectors through a complex network of intermediaries. What happens now? I asked. Alexei closed the laptop. Now we use this to ensure your safety. And mine. He made several calls, speaking in rapid Russian and occasionally English, giving instructions I couldn't follow. I wandered downstairs, feeling suddenly exhausted by the whole ordeal. The lakeside view was peaceful, pine trees swaying in the gentle breeze, sunlight dancing on the water's surface. If circumstances had been different, this might have been a pleasant retreat. Instead, it represented everything I despised about Danny's world, beautiful on the surface but built on lies and crime. I heard Alexei's footsteps behind me but didn't turn around. It's arranged, he said. Orlov will receive copies of select files and a clear message. If anything happens to you, Lily, or me, the complete evidence goes to federal authorities and certain international organizations. Will that be enough? I asked, finally facing him. For Orlov, yes. Self-preservation is his primary motivation. Alexei's expression was grim. As for his clients, I have other ways of ensuring their cooperation. I didn't ask for details. Some things were better left unknown. So, we're safe? I asked, barely daring to hope. Yes, he confirmed. You can return to your life, with some improvements, I think. I frowned. Meaning? The money Daniel set aside for you and Lily. It's clean now. I've had my financial people restructure the accounts, create a legitimate paper trail. $5 million, plus compensation from me for your troubles. My breath caught. I can't accept stolen money. It's not stolen anymore, he said simply. Consider it restitution for what Daniel put you through, for Lily's future. I wanted to refuse on principle, but the thought of what such resources could mean for my daughter gave me pause. No more struggling to pay bills, the best schools, a home in a safe neighborhood. Security I'd never imagined possible. I don't know, I said honestly. Alexei moved closer, close enough that I could smell that now familiar cologne. Think about it, he suggested. There's no rush to decide. We drove back to Chicago mostly in silence, the weight of everything we'd discovered lying heavy between us. By the time we reached Alexei's lake house, evening was falling, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Lily greeted me with an enthusiastic hug, chattering about the cookies she'd baked with Irina and the fish she'd seen jumping in the lake. The normalcy of her excitement was a balm to my frayed nerves. After dinner and Lily's bedtime routine, Alexei invited me to join him on the terrace overlooking the lake. The night was warm, stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. He poured 2 glasses of red wine, handing one to me. To resolution, he said, raising his glass slightly. I mirrored the gesture. To safety. We sipped in companionable silence for a moment before Alexei spoke again. You'll be free to leave tomorrow. My men will escort you home, ensure the apartment is secure. He paused, swirling the wine in his glass. Unless you'd prefer alternative arrangements. Alternative arrangements? A new home, perhaps. Something more suitable for you and Lily, in a better neighborhood. The offer was tempting. I need time to think about everything, I said. This has all happened so fast. He nodded. Of course. Another silence fell between us. Not uncomfortable, but charged with unspoken questions. Finally, I gathered my courage to ask the one that had been nagging at me. Why did you help us? You could have just taken the egg and left us to deal with the professor on our own. Alexei considered the question, his dark eyes reflecting the starlight. Initially it was practical. You were leverage, a way to recover what was mine. He set his wineglass down. But then? Then? I prompted when he didn't continue. Then I met Lily, he said simply. And I saw how you were with her, how despite everything Daniel had done, despite the hardships you'd faced, you'd created something pure, something worth protecting. The unexpected sincerity in his voice touched something deep inside me. For all his dangerous power and criminal connections, there was something fundamentally honorable about the man beside me. What will you do with the egg? I asked. A faint smile touched his lips. Return it to its hiding place, where it belongs. He looked out over the lake. Family legacies are worth preserving. Even when they're complicated, especially then. His eyes met mine. We don't choose the circumstances of our birth, or the complications of our inheritance. We only choose what we do with them. There was wisdom in his words that resonated with my own situation. Raising Danny's daughter, determined that she would inherit only the best parts of her complicated legacy. Will I see you again? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Alexei turned to face me fully. Something unreadable in his expression. Do you want to? The honest answer surprised even me. Yes. He reached out, his fingers gently brushing a strand of hair from my face, a mirror of that moment nights ago, but charged now with new meaning. There are many reasons why that would be unwise, he said softly. I know, I admitted. Our worlds were fundamentally incompatible. He lived in shadows I wanted no part of, carried dangers I couldn't expose Lily to. But, he continued, his hand lingering near my cheek, wisdom has never been my strongest quality. In the moonlight, with the lake stretching silvery and vast before us, the distance between our worlds seemed both insurmountable and irrelevant. When he leaned closer, I didn't pull away. His kiss was gentle at first, questioning, then deepening as I responded. For a moment, I let myself forget everything, but the warmth of his touch, the solid strength of him against me. When we finally separated, both slightly breathless, reality began to creep back in. I stepped back, creating necessary space between us. I should check on Lily, I said. Though I knew she was sleeping soundly, Alexei nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course. But as I turned to go, he caught my hand. Emma, he said, his voice low and serious. Whatever you decide, about the money, about this, know that you and Lily will always have my protection, whether you want it or not. The promise should have felt threatening coming from a man like him. Instead, it felt like the first truly solid ground I'd stood on in years. Thank you, I said simply, squeezing his hand before letting go. In the morning, things were different. Not awkward, but charged with a new awareness. As Mikhail loaded our bags into the car that would take us home, Alexei pulled me aside. Take this, he said, pressing a business card into my hand. It has my private number. Use it if you need anything at all. I nodded, slipping it into my pocket. The egg is safe? Yes, he confirmed, and so are you. Lily bounced impatiently by the car, excited to be going home to her familiar bedroom and toys. I smiled at her enthusiasm, grateful for her resilience. Goodbye, Alexei, I said, offering my hand formally, aware of the watching eyes of his security team. He took it, but instead of shaking it, he raised it to his lips in an old-world gesture that made my heart skip. Until we meet again, Emma. As our car pulled away from the lake house, Lily waved enthusiastically out the window. Bye, Mr. Alexei. Thank you for the cookies and the telescope. I watched in the side mirror as his figure grew smaller, standing tall and solitary on the steps, until we rounded a bend in the drive and he disappeared from view. 2 weeks later, I signed the papers on a modest but beautiful house in a safe neighborhood with excellent schools. The trust fund for Lily was established. My accounting program paid in full, A new beginning, built on complicated foundations but facing toward a brighter future. And sometimes, in the quiet evenings after Lily has gone to bed, I take out a certain business card and run my fingers over the embossed number, wondering when, not if, I'll finally dial it. After all, some connections once forged are impossible to break, even when they bind together worlds that were never meant to touch.